The NYPD has filled its third bus full of protesters who are participating in a massive sit-in at Trump Tower. All this over the arrest of Palestinian activist and green card holder Mahmoud Khalil. NBC's Yasmin Vasugian is there on the ground for us. What are you seeing, Yasmin?
Yeah, so it seems as if the protest, Chris, now is wrapping up a bit. And I say that because there were numerous arrests that happened on the scene here outside of Trump Tower. As you mentioned, this was a protest by an activist group called Jewish Voices for Peace. They were protesting the ongoing detention of Mahmoud Khalil. We know that to be the grad student at Columbia University who helped organize those pro-Palestinian protests. The ongoing pro-Palestinian protests that happened at Columbia University on the campus there. He has an 8-month pregnant wife at home. He has been sent to Louisiana to a detention center there. His lawyer saying outside a courtroom just yesterday that he has been unable to speak with his client so far throughout his detention. We've also heard from President Trump as well, who says these arrests will be ongoing. I've been speaking to folks up at Columbia University as well, Chris, and I will say there are people that are worried about these potential arrests that are happening there at the campus, seeing what has happened to Mahmoud Khalil so far. As we saw here behind me, the group saying Jewish Voices for Peace, 300 plus people gathered here over 2 hours or so. The NYPD coming and saying 3 separate times they had to come out of the lobby of Trump Tower or else they would face arrest. In fact, that is exactly what happened. There was a city bus that was brought here along with an NYPD bus as well. The NYPD bus was filled to the brink with protesters that were being arrested, along with a city bus that was halfway filled as well. We heard from the NYPD just moments ago in a press conference. Chris, let's take a listen to what they had to say about these arrests, and then we'll talk on the other side.
Roughly 150 people entered Trump Plaza. We made 98 arrests. Those arrests are for trespassing, obstructing governmental administration, and resisting arrest by virtue of us having to carry some of the people out of the Escalade.
Hey, sweetness.
Trump is a fuck-ass bitch and a literal fucking fascist. Don't be fooled and don't be tricked. He's a literal fucking fascist. He'd watch you die before he dirtied his hands. He wants ultimate power. That's the plan. And don't forget he's a literal fucking fascist.
The billionaires who lined up for Donald Trump's inauguration have since lost $209 billion. Between Trump's election and his inauguration, the S&P 500 index hit several all-time highs, seeing the world's wealthiest riding high on that wave. But mass federal layoffs and a to and fro on tariffs have upended expectations that the start of Trump's presidency would continue fueling market returns. That turbulence has seen the S&P 500 lose 6.4% in Trump's first 7 weeks. That's been bad news for the companies behind the inauguration attendees' fortunes, which have been some of the biggest losers. Between January the 17th, the last trading day before the inauguration, and the 10th of March, they've dropped a combined $1.39 trillion in market value.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you for joining me here for Conversations with Taz. Whew, child. Protest at Trump Tower, billionaires losing money, which I love to hear. Trump being fact-checked for the 3rd time at the White House by 3 different global leaders. Chef's kiss. But on top of that, other things have been going on. And let's get into that. First, because we definitely have some Trump fact-checking to do from last week's congressional address. I told y'all before that there was word on the curb that Musk was not swapping undercarriage juice with the mothers of his children. And one of his children, who I stand, oh my God, I'm such a fan of hers, dropped the bomb. Not only is IVF used, but some illegal IVF is being used. Allegedly. Allegedly.
Elon Musk's trans daughter, Vivian Jenna Wilson, claims he uses sex-selective IVF to ensure his children are male. Taking to threads on Sunday, the 9th of March, the 20-year-old wrote, "My assigned sex at birth was a commodity that was bought and paid for, so when I was feminine as a child and then turned out to be transgender, I was going against the product that was sold." She added, "That expectation of masculinity that I had to rebel against all my life was a monetary transaction." It's believed that Elon Musk currently has around 14 children, of which only 4 are known to be female, including Vivian Jenna Wilson, his trans daughter, whose mother is author Justine Wilson. His other female children are Azure and Arcadia, whose mother is Siobhan Zillis, an Exodark sidereal, who he shares with the musician Grimes. In 2021, Forbes described the Tesla CEO of taking an engineering approach to reproduction, noting that his first 5 children, including Vivian Jenna Wilson, came into this world via IVF. The article speculated, this approach raises many ethical questions, including, were his first babies selected to be male at the pre-implantation stage? Adding that sex selection is illegal in many countries. Elon Musk has publicly slammed his daughter's decision to transition to female. In July 2024, Musk spoke to right-wing commentator Jordan Peterson for the Daily Wire, where he said his daughter, who no longer speaks to him, had been
killed by the woke mind virus.
Pink News has reached out to representatives of Elon Musk for comment.
Go with me here. Go with me here. Imagine paying all this money to engineer children, and you now have older children, adult children. Not one of them is trying to follow in your footsteps, at least not publicly. I have not heard about any of them being a part of Doge. I've not heard about any of them wanting to be around him, have a relationship with him, no nothing. But you wanted boys so badly, and only the booger sugar, well, the booger shooter, is ever around you. And he's used more as a shield than anything else. And he's a little shit, so. And don't sometimes you shouldn't say that about people's kids. I've said that about my own kids. I say that about family. If you're a little shit, you're a little shit. I'm a medium-sized shit. Okay, I own it. Okay, and I'm also a medium-sized asshole. It is what it is. But it's like, come on. Like, you paid all this money for your kids still not to talk to you. First of all, you paid all this money to be a deadbeat daddy. Do you know how much money by just not? Like, if you're going to go through with the experiment, I can't remember the couple's name, but there's a couple, okay? They look like some Temu Steve Jobs, like the way that they're dressed, that they wanted, like they chose each other because of their intellect. Basically, they were trying to engineer their children and educate their children a certain way, like to make sure that their children would live a certain life, like programming and indoctrination from the get. Like, that's how this would work. Like, this is how you get the return on the investment. Like, what in his mind thought, have boy love me, boy do boy stuff with me according to what I think boy stuff is. Like, what? I can't. But right, super babies, like this is what he wants to create, but he's not putting anything else into him. And with the money and the resources that he has, he could do it. He could be a freaking menace. But yeah, I mean, well, his kids could be. Yeah, no. But whether you watch the congressional address with me, watch it online, or just watch clips of it, you know, per usual, Trump lied. I know people are like trying to have discussions regarding his cognition. He's a fucking liar. Okay. Liars cannot keep up with their lies. This is not a matter of him forgetting things. He lies. But let's go through some of his lies. Let's start with the success that he touted.
In his address to Congress, Donald Trump claimed that he has had the most successful first month of any president in history, with George Washington coming in second. And how he measures this success is that he claimed to have solved a wide variety of problems that did not actually exist in the first place. For instance, he patted himself on the back, claiming that he had terminated the Green New Scam, presumably meaning the Green New Deal, which he did not terminate because it had never been adopted in the first place. He said that one of the most important things he'd done was to end the, quote, insane electric vehicle mandate of Joe Biden. There was no electric vehicle mandate, so again, problem not solved because it didn't exist. He talked about ending the, quote, poison of critical race theory in public schools. Critical race theory is a boogeyman of the right, but in reality, it is a college-level academic concept that basically boils down to the undeniable truth that our laws and institutions have racial implications. It is not taught in K through 12, and it's not dangerous. It's not a problem that he solved. But then he got mad at Democrats for not applauding all of the victories that he had just made up. Then he pointed towards new fictional dangers and new fictional problems to try to take on, just basically making up things to be mad about. He tragically devoted a lot of attention to being mad at trans people and trying to get Americans to be mad at trans people. He seems to have invented some bicycle race where a trans person supposedly set a new world record by coming in 5 hours ahead of anyone else. Spoiler alert, if a new world record had been set by anyone of 5 hours faster than ever before, it would be something that you could Google and find and maybe would have heard of. As far as I can tell, this was an entirely fictional race, a bicycle that just went around only in Donald Trump's head. He also made up or repeated a lot of false or made up programs that Elon Musk claimed to have found during his efforts to purge expenses and purge people from the government. Most of those have been debunked before. The ones that seemed new, if it sounds too crazy to be true, it's probably because it's not true. He repeated the debunked lie that there are millions of people fraudulently receiving Social Security over the age of 100. That has been debunked in numerous places. Go look up one of them. He lied about the level of spending in Ukraine, falsely suggesting that the U.S. has spent 3 to 5 times as much on Ukraine's defense as Europe has, when in fact Europe has paid more. And he repeated some of his ugliest lies about immigrants, claiming that Joe Biden was flying criminals intentionally into the country and that they had taken over entire towns. Again, if entire towns had been taken over, this is a thing that you would know about without having Donald Trump needing to tell you. This is just on par with his ugly lie about Haitians supposedly eating dogs in Springfield, Ohio, which, again, wasn't true. So, if it weren't for the real-world implications, it would honestly be comical that Trump made up so many false dangers to be angry about. But the fact of the matter is that his government is working as if these false dangers are real. And the measures that this government will take to address these made-up dangers will have real-world consequences for Americans, which will often be dangerous. So that's my take on Trump's speech to Congress in a nutshell.
Now, you remember he kept talking about the race, the cyclist, the 5 hours thing. Take a look.
Last year, a male cyclist posing as a woman competed in the 800-mile Arizona Trail Race, a very big deal in cycling, and obliterated the woman's course record by nearly 5.5 hours. Sounds like a lot, doesn't it, huh?
There it is again, that same claim he made during the State of the Union. State of the Union, he gave no details. He didn't say where it happened or who it happened to, but here he is, right? Arizona, 800-mile race where a trans woman beat the other women by 5.5 hours. Sounds like a lot, doesn't it? No, it doesn't, actually. And he's talked about this before. And when that happened, the transgender woman he was speaking about realized he was speaking about her and addressed it. See, there's this bike packing event that happens in Arizona. Bike packing is where part of the event you ride your bike, other parts of the event you have to carry it on your back like a backpack. And it is 800 miles long. It takes over 8 days to complete. And yes, she completed that and set a new record of just over 5 hours past the previous record. Only here's the thing. That is a co-ed event that does not recognize a distinction between genders. So she wasn't beating the women's record, she was beating the overall record. She set the record that had been held by a man who had broken the record that was previously held by a woman. Later last year, a Lithuanian male cyclist broke the record again. The Arizona Trail Race is not segregated by gender, so singling out Killips as an example of a trans woman athlete who is hurting cisgender women is nonsensical. Furthermore, when she addressed this and called them out for their bullshit trying to blame trans women, instead of saying something about like, you need to support trans women, you need to support trans athletes, she used it as an opportunity to say, why don't you try supporting women's sports? Why don't you try passing legislation for women's sports, giving funding to women's sports? She used her opportunity where she was being used as a scapegoat and a pawn in a bullshit story to not advocate for herself so much as all women athletes.
Because once again, trans women are women. And you know, before there was a division between boys sports, girls sports, men's sports, women's sports, everybody competed together. And then women started beating men. Y'all, are y'all old enough to remember a few women that were drafted into the MLB, or women who made it onto the boys baseball team and men's got all in their feelings? Why is she here? Because they were getting their ass kicked. And they were saying, well, this is traditionally a man's sport. This is a man's world. Because if it was about trans athletes, nobody's saying anything about non-binary athletes. Nobody's saying anything about trans men. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because if the whole thing is a biological advantage and you want everything to be a meritocracy and equitable, wouldn't you be concerned, going by their logic, about trans men being hurt and playing in men's sports? But no, they're not. It's bullshit. And they're consistently lying to you. And this is why I say, for all the scientists, all the doctors that speak up to dispel this, keep doing the good work. To the people in the trans community who speak up to try to educate, once again, amazing work. I wish you did not have to do that work. I wish people would just let you fucking live. And also, if you ever see me in a back and forth or a debate with someone and you decide that you don't like them and you think that the way to get them is by telling me that they're a member of the trans community, you can go fuck yourself, because I don't give a damn. I'm not going to like or dislike them because they are in the trans community. It took all of us a while to figure out what womanhood, manhood, or non-binary hood means to us, who we are as men and women and non-binary individuals. All of us. You can try to lie to yourself and go, I knew instantly that I would. No, the fuck you didn't. No, the fuck you didn't. There were quite a few years in your life that you just existed and you never thought about being a boy or being a girl until other people started drilling it into your head and you legitimately had to take the time to fucking think about it. It's the girls complaining mean girl. What girls are complaining? What girls are honestly complaining? The ones that aren't good athletes? And how am I a mean girl? Anywho. Now, speaking of girls in sports complaining, let's take a look at the complainer that was put on full display for Trump's congressional speech.
Girl, so they lied about Peyton McNabb? So Peyton McNabb's volleyball career never ended. And after this traumatic brain injury that she supposedly suffered from, she was playing volleyball like 7 weeks later. And she went on to play softball, like, very well. So that entire story that he got up there and told y'all in front of the whole world was a complete lie. You know, I knew he had told a bunch of lies. I didn't think that everything came out of that man's mouth was a lie, though. And furthermore, if you go watch the video, because there's video of this trans girl who spiked the ball and hit Peyton in her face, she was in the wrong in the first place. She was playing terrible defense. And yes, she took a ball to the face. Lots of volleyball players do. But to get on there and lie and say that she suffered a traumatizing brain injury that completely ruined her sports career, that's wild, man. Like, the internet's forever, y'all. You know, what the fuck?
Sounds very familiar to a swimmer who didn't have the best record, who was not the greatest athlete, who legitimately peaked in high school and thought, oh, if I go to this school and I get into this, then I'm just going to. And when she couldn't win and she couldn't live up to the hype that she created in her head, it must be because of the trans girl. And it's not. It is okay to not be stellar. Keep in mind, there are more everything, schools, athletic organizations, dancing club, everything at younger ages. They start to whittle down the older you get, because some people just want to do it for fun. Some people realize, okay, I'm tapped out at middle school. This is the best that I'm going to get. Everybody doesn't make it to the big dance because everybody isn't an elite athlete. Now, remember, Trump shouted out an entire family, wife, husband, child. and said that the school did something despicable. You know, that talking point against the trans community. That, you know, people are going to school and they're coming back trans. They went in not trans and just coming home trans, and the school is doing it all. Like, people have the resources or the time to do any of that, okay? And I pointed out, if you watched the congressional address with me, that it was a lie because only the mother was there. Where was the child to confirm this? Because wouldn't the child proudly be there? If the child was wronged and these parents were advocating for their child, and where was the father? Take a look.
Who is January Littlejohn, and was her child really secretly transitioned? On Tuesday, the 4th of March, U.S. President Donald Trump made a string of claims about the LGBTQ+ community during his address to Congress. Following a bizarre rant about transgender mice, the president said,
A few years ago, January Littlejohn and her husband discovered that their daughter's school had secretly socially transitioned their 13-year-old little girl. Teachers and administrators conspired to deceive January and her husband while encouraging her daughter to use a new name and pronouns. They, them pronoun, actually.
In 2021, the Littlejohn family sued Florida's Leon County School District, alleging that education officials had failed to inform them of their child's gender identity and social transition. However, emails seen by CNN paint a different story. They appear to show that January Littlejohn was aware of her child's gender identity. In one email sent to a teacher in 2020, Littlejohn wrote, "This has been an incredibly difficult situation for our family, and her father and I are trying to be as supportive as we can. She is currently identifying as non-binary. She would like to go by the new name and prefers the pronouns they, them. We have not changed her name at home yet, but I told her if she wants to go by the name with her teachers, I won't stop her." In response to the email, the teacher thanked Littlejohn and asked if she should share with other teachers. However, following that initial exchange, Littlejohn and her husband sued the Leon County School Board for developing a transgender, gender nonconforming student support plan for their child, as per the school's standard policy, which January Littlejohn claimed was created without notifying her or her husband.
What they actually did is they affirmed my daughter's self-hate. They affirmed in her mind that something was wrong with her body. No one loves their children more than parents do. And it's our fundamental right to direct the upbringing of our children.
A federal judge subsequently dismissed the Littlejohn's lawsuit for failure to state a claim upon which relief can be granted. The Littlejohn family are currently appealing this decision.
There's some layers to this. Now, some people may be confused, saying, well, why would the mother email the teacher and say, hey, this is what's going on, go ahead with this, and then backtrack and sue? That's exactly why. She set the school up to do something, forgetting she put it in writing. Bigots are persistent. They're not all that smart. And once again, like I told y'all, she wasn't advocating for her child. She's sitting there talking about self-hate and everything else. And did you also catch that someone, a part of the party, who's always trying to govern everybody else's household, said parents should have the right? But I bet you she doesn't want any other parent to have that right. Never, ever, 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 ever. I agree. Nobody named after. Especially not January. Come on. Come on. Like, you couldn't even get a warm month. June Cleaver would never. But like that congressional address was targeted at sycophants, like I said before, to shield Trump from his bigotry, so people could go, see, he did this, he can't be this, he did this, he can't be that. Okay, there are thieves that don't steal every day. Does that mean that they're not a thief? There are liars that don't lie every second of the day, because eventually they go to sleep. Does that mean that they're no longer a liar? A whore fucks for a living. If she takes a couple days off, or he takes a couple days off, does that mean that they're no longer a whore? Like I told y'all, it was a full-on trauma fest. Okay. Are your ears broken? The child wasn't questioned. The parents, the mother, admittedly wrote an email under the guise of advocating for her child. From the information gathered from the mother, a plan was put in place. The mother knew that so she could set up a lawsuit. The mother was going to make a quick buck off of her daughter while also traumatizing her daughter. It doesn't hurt to listen. And then we know, notably, Trump made outlandish claims about trans mice. We're going to get to that in a minute, okay? Because there's a particular woman who has made this claim and believing in it her whole personality on TikTok. But before we get there was a young man that I said, Trump's doing this to tokenize him and to shield him from claims of racism, especially since not long before the congressional address, it came out that Trump had asked his daughter Ivanka and his son-in-law Jared Kushner to write a letter saying that he was not anti-Semitic, and they said no. We cannot say that in good faith because we know that's not true. So Trump needed something. He needed something. Plus, it's blatantly clear that he's racist. So he brought out a melanated cancer survivor. This young man is the epitome of indoctrination with a touch of incel. And no, I'm not reaching. Take a look for yourself.
Well, I'm just going to be honest with you. God didn't put you on this earth to like people. He just put you here to live your life. If you're a Democrat and you're being mean to President Trump, I'm on your bumper.
Can I call you officer or agent, DJ Daniel, all of the above?
It really don't matter to me. I love women, so I don't care.
Think your friends are going to be jealous?
Pretty much. And I'm pretty sure my girlfriend going to be jealous. Cause she ain't gonna be. I say you can't. I'm gonna be like you. I'm gonna be like you gonna have to hit the road jacks. I might look 13, but I'm 50. Donald Trump is the best president of the United States. If I see you being mean to him, I'm coming after you. My friends, I know one of my friends told me to say this to Donald Trump, but I didn't say it to him. So good luck, buddy.
DJ, scale of 1 to 10. Last night, how surprised were you when you heard you were going to become a Secret Service agent?
Very surprised. I ain't gonna lie, my body almost dropped to the floor.
He's got all the hypocrisy down pat. You don't have to like anybody, but if you don't like Donald Trump, I'm coming after you. My buddy told me not to say this, that, and the other. And here's the thing. Before you go, well, no, that's not believable. Who would be friend? Y'all are not aware that there's a reason why conservative women are all over the place going, well, why wouldn't you even consider dating a conservative woman? Because conservative men are not checking for conservative women. Conservative men are on dating apps lying to women about either not voting, voting for Kamala, not being political, and then their slip is starting to show, and they're getting called out. And he's sitting there. Did you catch the nuggets of incel rhetoric? I'm really 50. I like woman. You could say. It reminds me of a Reddit story where a young lady had gone out on a date with a Make-A-Wish kid that had survived. And this grown man was still sliding on the fact that he was once a Make-A-Wish kid and really thought that because at one point in his life he also had cancer, that women were obligated to service him and be nice to him. Yeah, I was shocked to hear that he had a girlfriend too. Because I'm like, sir, your focus should have been on cancer. And I'm not saying this because of his age. I'm saying this period point blank. How are you gonna focus on a relationship? And how did you cultivate like? But listening to him talk, a little bit of me is siding with folks that are questioning his age. And there was one person, I should have saved the video. I didn't. I wasn't thinking. That said that it's giving Gypsy Rose, not the criminal, like Gypsy Rose criminal aspect, but yeah, tokenization top to bottom. You should have known what the ideologies were that were being discussed in that household for him to be invited to the congressional address, because Trump didn't just know this child existed. This means someone in the family or multiple people in the family wrote, went on social media to get the attention of someone to get that far. This was not happenstance. But like I said, he did also bring up trans mice. Like I said, there is a woman who is utilizing this for all the clicks, likes, clout, and income she can make.
8 million to make mice transgender. Is this real life?
Sadly, this is real life, Danielle. At least for me. Maybe not so much for you, but for me it is very real that I live in a country where my president is such a genuinely dumb guy that when he sees this word, transgenic, rather than ask somebody what that word means, he goes, "What? Transgender? What? We got transgender mice? They better not be competing with the other mice." That's how genuinely stupid a person he is. And to make matters worse, Danielle, his fans are so devoted that you guys believe everything he says. And this is the infuriating loop that we find ourselves in, is Trump comes out, says some crazy shit that isn't real, you guys believe him, then we come out and we correct you guys and we say, hey, that's not real. But you guys don't listen to us, so you go on complaining about that thing. And mark my words, Trump will absolutely keep talking about transgender mice, especially because he loves getting a laugh. And keep in mind, it's not real. And this happens over and over again, Danielle. Whether it's kitty litter boxes in schools, or picking up your kids from class and they're a different gender, or people eating your cats and dogs. I'll never get over that, Danielle, the fact that you guys believe that. But this has happened so many times that you guys are now living in some new reality, where all you guys do is sit around complaining about a bunch of shit that you made up. And it is very much not real life, Danielle. So here's what I would suggest. Here's a rule that I live by. If I hear some news that surprises me and makes me mad at the same time, I look it up. Because more often than not, Danielle, news like that is either out of context or just not real. And especially when it comes to Trump, I would say 90,000% of the time, it's not real. You guys still haven't caught on to this, that literally everything that Trump says is either highly exaggerated or completely made up. All of it. And the sooner you guys figure that out, the sooner you can come back to reality. And we cannot wait to have you guys back in real life. Honestly, it's driving us crazy. Oh, this cult is driving us crazy. Okay, let us know when you guys are ready to come back to real life, okay? All right, good luck, Danielle.
But does Danielle want to come back to real life? She never left.
You know, sometimes it's just best to shut the fuck up.
Yes, Danielle. It is. It really is. But she didn't stop there.
I have come to the realization why one party is so much more miserable and unhappy than the other party. It is because they wrap themselves up in things that make them mad. They see something on the internet that makes them mad. They get enraged. They want to hate comment. They want to hate message. They want to ruin your life. It is crazy. They want to threaten you. They want to insult you. They want to belittle you. If you want a happy life, you need to surround yourself with happiness. You don't want to engage in things that make you mad. You don't want to fight and raise your blood pressure. What good does that do? In all honesty, nobody is going to make me not like Trump. I love Trump. I voted for him 3 times. Is he perfect? No. Do I agree with a lot of his policies? Absolutely. Are there some things that I might not fully agree with? Sure. You're not going to change my opinion on Trump. Just like I know I'm not going to ever change your opinion on Trump. So why even bother? Why even try? Focus on yourself.
Well, at least she's one of the few Trumpers and few white women who isn't going to outright play victim. She's just going to project. Because everything that she described, all of us know, is what MAGA does to everyone else and what racists do to everyone else. They literally spend all of their time going to hashtags that they know belong to marginalized people or non-MAGA. They will go into lives just to spew talking points that they're so proud to have memorized, and they've been waiting to shout at someone. But you see how she grabbed hold of something that she did not bother to fact check. Now, I had an inkling of what he was talking about. And I thought maybe, but I had no confirmation at the time. It was a program because University of Cincinnati is not far from me. And it's my alma mater that, might be talking about that project. It's exactly what they were talking about. And here's the thing. The ignorance is putting hate towards research meant to help everybody. Because the research is dementia research. Let me repeat that to you. The research is dementia research, amongst other things. But yeah. Oh yeah, her resemblance to Marjorie Taylor. And here's the thing. For people who stand by these societal standards of what's feminine and what's masculine, and the amount of them that are the loudest that do not fit these standards, that are also transphobic, is astounding. Because I'm like, out in the wild, your fellow MAGA, your fellow transphobes would accuse you of being a member of the trans community. But the irony is lost on them, amongst everything else. But Trump is getting fact-checked all the way around. Now, I know a lot of news has broken within the past 24 to 48 hours about even Fox News fact-checking Trump regarding the economy. And like I said at the top of this, that 3 world leaders thus far, because Trump can't travel to most of the countries that he should be able to as POTUS, because, felon. So everybody's having to come to him. And I'm waiting for him to try to spin that into like a Godfather move. But I don't think Trump has very many outlets that are truly his allies anymore. Now, I keep doing my best to remind people that USCMA was negotiated by the first Trump administration. Trump notoriously and infamously kept touting and talking about it as the greatest thing to ever be negotiated for the United States. How it's so wonderful. Now he's like, oh, this is pitiful. This is pathetic. Who allowed part of our electricity to be controlled by Canada? This deal takes advantage of us. This was stupid because he wants Canada to be the 51st state. He wants that manifest destiny moment that he has to shit on his own thing. But although Tassie Farms never forgets, so does somebody that was his ally.
American car makers and the
There we
MCA, you know, what the USMCA, it's Mexico, Canada. I
Yes.
thought it would be a fair thing to do. And so I gave them a little bit of a break for this short period of time.
But I asked you about this before, and I know you told me when I asked you, I said, you did use MCA. You put this together.
Yeah.
And yet then you come back and you change it up with these tariffs. And you said to me at that time, I did it because I can. I put an amendment in there, and I said in 6 years I can change it. But I think CEOs want to see predictability. They say, look, I have to speak with shareholders. I've got to make plans for CapEx spending. I can't if it's 20% one day and then it's off for a month and it's 25%.
Yeah.
So can you give us a sense of whether or not we are going to get clarity for the business community?
Well, I think so. But, you know, the tariffs could go up as time goes by, and they may go up. And, you know, I don't know if it's predictability. I think
So that's not clarity?
No, I think that they say that. You know, it sounds good to say. But for years, the globalists, the big globalists, have been ripping off the United States. They've been taking.
So Trump didn't like that because she said it's not clarity. You're not. She didn't go this far, but governing in a way that would allow for a stable economic environment. That's the sort of clarity you need from a president.
Taking money away from the United States, and all we're doing is getting some of it back. And we're going to treat our country fairly. This country has been ripped off from every nation in the world, every company outside in the world. We've been ripped off at levels never seen before. And all we're going to do is get it back. We're going to get a lot of it back. We're not going to let people take advantage of us anymore.
Get what back? What is he even? He's just wildly. I always say he's wildly confused. Or there's some malicious plot here that I can't exactly figure out. Because what's the plan? In his mind, what is the plan? Maybe he doesn't understand it. Maybe he does and doesn't care. But to go through a few of the things that were said, and then we'll get on to the other clip of the two of them. But Maria Bartiromo said the last time they talked, when she asked, why are you doing this? He said, because I can. That is not a justification for anything. A parent says that, hey, I'm taking your phone away. Why? Because I can't. But the U.S. president, that just doesn't mean anything. I can throw a bowling ball off the top of a tall building. Doesn't mean I should. I could chop Jaden's leg off. Doesn't mean I should. The president could nuke someone randomly. Doesn't mean they should. So that's just a meaningless phrase. And then he goes on to talk about how, we're so ripped off and we've been.
He's also seething because she was one of the ones that he said he rounded out the Kennedy Center board by placing her on. And she fact-checked him. Yeah, huge is kind. And for somebody who keeps proclaiming to be such an astute businessman, anyone in business knows that stability is the key. Transparency is the key. You need confidence in the market. And corporations need investors. They need boards of directors. They need stockholders. Right now, there's no stability. Zero. I watched an interview with one of the bourbon distillers, and it's a newer distillery. And this gentleman was saying, yes, he was negotiating with some international companies, and before they could cement a contract, Trump tossed out tariffs. Okay, let's rework the contract. Then Trump pulled back. That nobody can cement a contract because you don't know what you're working with. You don't know what you're potentially agreeing to or locking yourself into. And especially with things between Canada and the United States right now, you really don't you can't lock anything down. Trump keeps talking about and trying to posture to Canada like, oh, I'll destabilize your economy. No, you're going to destabilize our economy. All of this uncertainty, all of this posturing, all of this going back and forth, on top of layoffs that are going to trickle down. Because when you're giving a skeleton crew to these agencies and cutting off funding and all of these things, that affects businesses within the United States. I have been extremely fortunate. One, due to skill level. Two, due to how I do business. Once I got about year 5, I had enough clientele to sustain myself and the amount of employees that I have. I've never had to advertise since then. I've never had to scout out clients. Good. From time to time, we may take on a temporary extra client here and there because who doesn't want a little extra money? Okay, we just looked at it as a little bonus. I lost 2 clients because at this point, the uncertainty of the tariffs, they don't know how to even budget at this point. They don't even know if they're going to even get equipment that they need, if they're going to get parts that they need. At this point, they have to just stack up as a just in case. And because they're smaller businesses, they can only raise prices so much because after that, people might as well go to the major corporations. The whole point of them being competitive was them being smaller and being able to offer better pricing. If they're offering you the same price as the conglomerates, and he's not thinking. And for somebody who touts himself and markets himself as this great real estate mogul, and Don Jr., same way from the court records from around this time last year, you would think that they would understand where the lumber comes from for construction, where the steel and aluminum comes from for construction. Like, you would think a real estate mogul would be the last one to beef with Canada. And also, let's not forget, he tried to sell alcohol too. Like, the things that he's dabbled in, you would think if you're going to say that he is a prolific businessman, you would think, okay, being in certain industries, you would not beef with certain countries this way. And not only is he putting these tariffs, well, threatening tariffs, he's not telling them what he wants for negotiations to happen. Not until he said, hey, I'm going to keep doing this until you agree to be the 51st state. Canada is a commonwealth of Great Britain. So how are we supposed to do this? And if we keep fucking over Canada as a commonwealth of Great Britain, who else is going to side with us? Nobody. Who else is going to trade with us? Nobody. But Trump didn't stop there. He's claiming that Biden and the Democrats were going after political rivals and people they didn't like. But then this happened.
We've got some news. Trump just punished the federal prosecutor who put Jeffrey Epstein's partner, Ghislaine Maxwell, in prison, and that's not all. Trump's Justice Department just put 3 federal prosecutors on leave. 2 of the prosecutors, Andrew Rohrbach and Celia Cohen, worked on the prosecution of New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Rohrbach also worked on the successful prosecutions of Ghislaine Maxwell, Sam Bankman-Fried, and Michael Avenatti. So that's right, MAGA. You were duped on the Epstein files, and Trump is now punishing the prosecutor who prosecuted Epstein's associate. Are you getting it yet? Follow the Midas Touch podcast on Apple and Spotify for more.
Are you getting why he's not using legacy politicians anymore? Why he's not using career politicians anymore? Well, I shouldn't say career politicians, reputable politicians anymore. Well, those that were reputable until they got into bed with him. Because Ghislaine was in prison during his last administration. Ghislaine was locked up. They wasn't letting her out. And keep in mind, Ghislaine was married to a whole nother man when she was fucking around with Epstein and doing what she was doing. Ghislaine came from money. She was a socialite. Them pick me vibes, them pick me vibes, them pick me vibes. This is why pick me's disgust me and scare me all at the same damn time. Because the things that they will do and excuse and protect in order to have a whiff of a partner. And I'm not going to say just a man, because there's pick me's of all sexual orientations. And now he's going after people who rightfully prosecuted her. Such an upstanding guy, right? Remember I told y'all about his gold card visa program. Now, once again, in full disclosure, have there been similar programs in the United States before? Yes. Not with these stipulations and not with this price tag. Have there been similar programs in other countries for the sake of earning revenue? Yes, full disclosure. For this price tag? No. Under these stipulations? No. Like I said, full disclosure. Take a look at this.
Trump's so-called gold card program, visa program. You've heard about this? He's offering residency and a path to citizenship for $5 million. This is not an immigration policy, it's a fire sale. Citizenship is just another product on the shelf. I mean, why not tweak that program? Allow Americans to sell their citizenship for $5 million. Now that makes sense. Let struggling Americans get paid and move out of that country with their newfound millions. That's a program I could get behind. Imagine if, for instance, just say 10% of African Americans could sell their citizenship for $5 million each. That's roughly 5 million new millionaires, $25 trillion between them. You can get a Dominican citizenship for an investment of just $100,000. You could make the Dominican Republic $25 trillion richer overnight. You know, I'm just saying African Americans because they have the most obvious reasons for being interested in selling their citizenship, since they don't get much out of it in the first place. But if you offered a program like that in reality, well, I think that you'd see that country empty out. I mean, ask yourself, if you're an American, what would you rather have? American citizenship or $5 million? $5 million and the opportunity to get citizenship elsewhere and have all the safety and all the security that comes with being that rich. Retaining your citizenship is never going to secure for you that kind of wealth. It's never going to secure that kind of wealth for you. It's never going to give you that kind of freedom, and it's never going to give you that kind of security. And I think you know it. I think you ought to demand the right to sell your citizenship, since he's already treating it like a product, like an asset that can be bought and sold. So why can't the people who already possess that asset, who already have that product, why can't they sell it? Isn't that capitalism? Isn't that the free market? Forget about selling it. If American citizenship is worth $5 million, well, shouldn't we be entitled to a refund? I mean, I don't know about you, but I sure never got $5 million worth of value from my citizenship. Did you? Well, I think the government ought to buy it back, just like corporations, you know, with their share buybacks and so on. You can have it. Give me that $5 million and we'll be on our way. Who wouldn't go for that deal? Why, you'd see that whole country depopulated within days.
In other countries, you can get free secondary education. You get immediate assistance for having a child. Child care is provided. Maternity and paternity leave is provided. Mental health is taken seriously. Universal health care is provided. Tax dollars aren't taxed on every little bitty thing, and the tax dollars actually work for the people. So what are you really buying for $5 million? Because you're not going to get a $5 million return. You're not going to get a return on investment, and your investment isn't going to accrue any interest. It's not going to appreciate, it's going to depreciate rapidly. And quite honestly, what have the rest of us gotten? What has our citizenship, our residency here truly gotten us? Because even when it comes to Social Security, which all of us must pay into, we have to jump through hoops in order to get it. And depending on whether or not you were born here, depends on whether or not you can take from it. When it comes to taxes, our streets are still a mess. Our bridges are full of shit. Our infrastructure is flaming dog shit. Our healthcare system is riddled with racist capitalism. There are some people that would opt to slowly die at home, then slowly die in a hospital and leave their family plausibly houseless and in debt. We go by the motto, dog eat dog world, while telling everybody that we're a melting pot of everything, while we're trying to pull everything out of the melting pot and just make it white melted cheese with a dab of mayo and a smidge of milk. So you have to ask yourself, what is anyone getting? Because he went from selling pardons to selling this. Let me repeat. He went from selling pardons in the first administration to now selling this. And it still didn't change our deficit. He's now telling people that we are the purse of the globe, when we all know, when we look at the facts and let our minds actually work, that we are the adolescents of this globe and we are borrowing money from everybody. We are asking all the siblings on this floating space rock to let us borrow a little 20 here, a little 20 there, 100 here, 100 there. Let me get a little funky $50. But you want to know why so many people are willing to be bigoted? The tenets and talking points of white supremacy have never changed. The only thing that has changed is the target. I want you to think about the things that they used to say and still say to Black, brown, indigenous people of color. Those same talking points are used towards the LGBTQIA plus community, towards immigrants, towards anyone that's not under the umbrella of tyrannical Christianity, because they leave actual Christians alone. Hate has no bounds, and hate has no problem realigning to hit a new target. Hate doesn't sleep. Hate works overtime and actually enslaves you and convinces you to enslave your children. Hate is chattel slavery. So when the bigots want to say, well, we've all been slaves, yeah, but the difference is my ancestors didn't want to be slaves. You're willingly being a slave. You're willingly working triple, quadruple time for free to run around and tell people that they are beneath you, that they don't belong to be here. Make it make sense. Now I have one final video to play for you all. It's a bit of a long one, so you know how this goes if you've been around for a while. This is time to cut up the volume and go get a snack. Okay, and make it do what it do. But if you have not joined us on the Eager, either Substack or the daily, I'm sorry, not weekly, daily at 2 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Central, 11 Pacific, lives where we discuss race, you should. If you have not gone over to my Substack, you should. I want you to truly listen to this. I do not care what race, ethnicity, gender you are. I want you to listen to this because everybody can gain a little bit of understanding from this. Some, a lot of it. But pay close attention.
White people have never even liked each other. And why would they? They're awful. White people love to act like they've built the most advanced, unified civilizations, but history suggests they've spent more time fighting, betraying, and resenting one another than actually working together. They waged wars of brutal conquest against their own neighbors. They divided themselves into endless class hierarchies where even the rich barely tolerated each other. Their royal families intermarried so much they caused genetic disasters rather than share power with outsiders. They built entire nations on the idea that some white people weren't white enough. Even today, their political and social divisions are so extreme that they can barely function as societies. At some point, we have to ask, if white people were truly the standard for human civilization, why have they spent history being their own worst enemy? White people spent most of their history slaughtering each other. The 100 Years' War, white people fighting white people for 116 years. The War of Roses, white nobles slaughtering each other for a throne. The English Civil War, white people fighting over how they should govern themselves. The Napoleonic Wars, France versus the rest of white Europe for nearly 2 decades. World War I and II, white people causing global destruction over their own internal disputes. Meanwhile, non-white societies built systems of cooperation. Many indigenous societies maintained peace through complex alliances and trade networks. African kingdoms built economic coalitions instead of destroying each other over minor grievances. Asian dynasties formed diplomatic marriages and power-sharing agreements to avoid unnecessary war. White people weren't building civilizations. They were just taking breaks between wars. White people's social hierarchies have always been built on hating each other. Medieval Europe was structured so that peasants suffered while nobles hoarded wealth, and they still fought amongst themselves. The Catholic and Protestant schism turned Christianity into an excuse for white people to unalive each other for centuries. Aristocrats in every European country looked down on merchants, who looked down on laborers, who looked down on beggars. Pure misery from top to bottom. Even within the same country, they developed regional and class-based divisions that kept them in constant conflict. They created strict racial hierarchies that excluded certain white groups, such as Irish, Italians, and Slavs, until it became politically convenient to include them. Meanwhile, other cultures built more flexible social systems. Indigenous societies often had communal governance rather than rigid feudalism. African and Middle Eastern cultures allowed for social mobility through trade, skill, and leadership. Asian dynasties promoted scholars and civil servants over bloodline alone. White people weren't uniting society. They were dividing themselves into misery. White people's royal families were too busy betraying each other to maintain stability. European monarchies relied on fragile marriage alliances that constantly collapsed into war. They intermarried so much they gave themselves hemophilia and other genetic disorders. Kings and queens were regularly assassinated, overthrown, and executed by their own relatives. The French, English, and Russian monarchies were all wiped out by their own people out of sheer hatred. Even today, European royal families barely tolerate each other, holding centuries-old grudges. Meanwhile, non-white monarchies maintain stability longer. China's dynastic system lasted for thousands of years, adapting to maintain power. The Ottoman Empire incorporated different ethnic groups rather than just inbreeding its rulers. African kingdoms often had check on royal power through councils and elders. White people weren't ruling effectively. They were playing a generational game of betrayal. White people have never even agreed on who counts as white. The British didn't consider the Irish fully white for centuries. The US didn't consider Italians or Eastern Europeans white until the mid-20th century. The Nazis reclassified entire groups of white people as subhuman when it fit their political agenda. Even today, white people argue over who is truly white based on ancestry, culture, and arbitrary rules. Meanwhile, other cultures didn't waste time on this nonsense. Most non-white societies recognize cultural identity over arbitrary racial purity. Many indigenous groups welcomed outsiders into their communities through marriage or adoption. African, Asian, and Middle Eastern civilizations absorbed new groups rather than excluding them. White people weren't defining race. They were constantly moving the goalposts. Even in the modern day, white people can't get along with each other. Europeans still hold centuries-old grudges against neighboring countries. Americans are politically divided to the point of complete dysfunction. White nationalist groups argue over who is pure enough to join them. Conservatives and liberals within white societies hate each other more than they hate their supposed common enemies. They spend more time fighting over regional accents and cultural differences than actually resolving their problems. Meanwhile, other cultures focus on collective survival. Indigenous communities emphasize cooperation over ideological purity. Non-white resistance movements prioritize shared struggles over minor differences. Black, Latino, and Asian political groups often unify around common causes despite cultural diversity. White people weren't creating stable societies. They were just keeping their infighting interesting. If white people were truly the most advanced societies, why have they spent history at war with themselves? Cope.
Before I go into this, there was one comment that said, did all that under the name of God? No, they didn't. They did all of that under the name of whiteness. That's it. They rebranded, whitewashed, and made God tyrannical to assist them in doing things under the guise of whiteness. Now, if you want to know more about societies on the continent of Africa, we are beginning in the 1600s on my Saturday Black History course. You can go to the link in my bio and sign up for that. But I want to say this. The hate that you all have for one another causes bullying amongst each other. It causes infighting, which causes you all to be the schoolyard bullies. And that is why it is so easy for you to grab hold of racism and white supremacy and wield it as a weapon. When people say hurt people, they're talking about you. This is why it's important to start questioning yourself and looking within and getting uncomfortable so that the growth spurt and the growth can happen. So things can realign. Because as much as you have been taught and forced to believe that racism hurts all of them out there, but it will never hurt you, ricochets don't care who they hit, and racism is full of ricochets. And if you haven't realized that you're getting hit by ricochets now, you'll never get it. But as always, thank you for joining me here. And each one teach one, each one reach one. Make sure you go out and get into some good trouble. But in this economy, altogether, nothing that requires bail money. Until next time.